I just got back from Paul Thomas Anderson's latest film. It is his 10th movie, One Battle After Another. It's one of the best movies of 2025. It's one of those few movies you get every year that truly just, sends shockwaves through your body, reaches another level, does almost everything that you want it to do, really. And yeah, I walked out of this movie pretty elated. There are definitely things about One Battle After Another that you could take issue with or quibble with, but I thought this movie was fantastic. It's going to be really interesting to see what the discourse is over the next, several months throughout Oscar season. Based on my screening, people were eating it up. They were laughing really hard. They seemed to be really enjoying the film, despite it being this almost 3-hour kind of heady, loose adaptation of a Thomas Pynchon novel, who Pynchon is very famous for his kind of complex, coded dialogue, and there's a lot of that here. The 4 big reasons that One Battle After Another is something new for Paul Thomas Anderson. Number 1 is that he's never made an action movie before. He has made generally kind of character-driven dramas. I would say the closest he's gotten to an action scene before this is the kind of oil rig explosion in There Will Be Blood. But One Battle After Another is full of are genuine moments of action, several car chases, explosions, robberies, pursuits on foot. I mean, this movie's scale and kineticism, I think, are something that are new for Anderson and really exciting. Next is the fact that Anderson hasn't made a non-period piece in a while. It was sort of up for debate whether or not he was ever going to make a movie set in modern day again and what he would do with that. This is such an of-the-moment movie. One Battle After Another could not feel more timely. And my next point is that this is an outright political film. I think, funnily enough, if his previous most action-oriented sequence was in There Will Be Blood, There Will Be Blood was also his most political film up until this. It has this commentary about the dueling forces of religion and capitalism or money in the US, and it's a pretty anti-capitalist movie, but I also think it hides behind its period trappings a little bit too much, and that the conclusions it makes about religion and money are sort of predetermined and kind of obvious, but there's nothing tidy or neat about One Battle After Another. I mean, this is a messy and tough movie about immigration detention centers, revolutionaries, resisting literal resistance against a fascist regime. This is an extremely piercing and relevant movie for this time. It's also his most violent film by far. They're dotted with violence, but it's never been as pervasive and intense and bloody as it is in One Battle After Another. But thankfully, I'm glad that he waited till this stage in his career to make this violent of a film, because he doesn't revel in it at all. He doesn't glorify the violence like Quentin Tarantino might. This is upsetting violence, and I really love that about it. I think it's upsetting, but it is important with the political themes that it's dealing with. And finally, this is also PTA's blackest film. It's by far his movie with the most interest in giving black characters in the black community a voice and an equal part in the film. My own partner Mackenzie and I are gonna do a reaction video about this movie once she and I get a chance to see it together, to get her kind of thoughts on this aspect of the movie. I think Teyana Taylor is spectacular in the first 20-30 minutes of the movie, whatever she's in, and then she leaves the film and we don't see her again, and that was disappointing for me. I also think how she's characterized in the first part of the movie, maybe you could take some issue with, even though she is great and has a lot of fun with that character. Luckily, Chase Infinity as the grown-up or semi-grown-up version of Leonardo DiCaprio and Teyana Taylor's kid is pretty wonderful in the movie. Also, with the blackness, it is tackling issues of white supremacy, not just, giving voice to the black community, but it's tackling issues of white supremacy. DiCaprio, who I've barely talked about at all, but he is the lead in the film as Bob Ferguson, this impassioned revolutionary. He's good with explosives. In the brunt of the film, he's middle-aged and sort of stoned and a little bit complacent, but he's really great in the movie. I think it's easily his best performance since Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, if not since Wolf of Wall Street. comparisons. I think that there's a number of sort of comparisons you could make with One Battle After Another to some films from recent years. Most recently, Eddington. I think, I liked Eddington okay. This is Ari Aster's movie that came out over the summer that is set in COVID, May 2020, and it's really trying to grapple with our present era, our present moment, how we got to where we are right now, just in terms of like society and politics and divisions kind of pockmarking the US. I thought it was an admirable try, basically. I thought it was somewhat compelling, but sort of disjointed. The thing that people often cite about it is that Aster had the script before COVID as sort of this modern Western, and then he kind of grafted COVID onto it. And you can just sort of feel like that it's sort of this film with kind of these like Frankenstein elements, Eddington that is. Whereas One Battle After Another feels so seamless. I mean, all of it, first of all, the energy is just so propulsive all the way through, and that goes back to it kind of being like an action movie. But also all the violence and political commentary and satire feels just baked into the whole with One Battle After Another. Whereas Eddington, you kind of have some of the humor over here, and you have some of the violence is sequestered till the very end in Eddington, or most of the violence till like the back third of it. And I found that to be like especially sort of derivative of Tarantino's kind of bloody finales. And also it felt more like violence in order to kind of feed the hounds, the like bloodthirsty people who are really looking for that violence in a film. In One Battle After Another, first of all, there's violence throughout. And second of all, it feels a lot less like it's reveling in it. And One Battle is a lot more insightful about our present moment than Eddington. They both do sort of make fun of both sides, I guess, kind of like the left and the right. But what's nice is One Battle has this very sort of satisfying ending. Maybe it's there to sort of placate leftists or make leftists leave and feel good about themselves, but I don't know. I thought that was kind of nice right now, honestly, and it doesn't try to attempt to say everything's okay or anything like that, but I did think it was better than Aster's kind of sick joke he's playing on all of us, ending his film by saying, we're all so fucked, and you're a fucking idiot too. I mean, there is a place for that, and yeah, I do have some respect for Eddington, but I just think if you're comparing these two, One Battle kind of eats Eddington's lunch. I also think something I was reminded of in the film, strangely, were two 2023 movies. First was Oppenheimer, and the next was Killers of the Flower Moon. In the case of Killers of the Flower Moon, it's the Osage tribe. And in the case of One Battle After Another, it's Black revolutionaries set in and around these communities. But the focus is still on Leonardo DiCaprio as a white, straight, bumbling, in both cases, hero or anti-hero. I guess in Killers, he's not necessarily a hero, but he is still our protagonist. Something about that feels imbalanced. And in Killers, I thought it was more pronounced, where like Lily Gladstone is so great, and we have her there as his Osage wife, but the focus is so not on her, really. And that just felt like a bummer to me. And I also don't think DiCaprio is that good in Killers. I actually think it's one of his weaker performances in his whole career. But in One Battle, it's mostly fine, but it does feel like, okay, this is the guy that we're following though through all of this, when we have Teyana Taylor, when we have Chase Infinity, when we have Regina Hall, when we have fucking Jungle Pussy, we're following Leonardo DiCaprio. Well, I do understand it, but would I have liked a version of One Battle After Another where Teyana Taylor is the lead instead? Even more? Maybe, yeah. But I think PTA is still firing on all cylinders here, and DiCaprio is great too, so I'm not ultimately complaining that much, I guess. With Oppenheimer, I thought of Oppenheimer in One Battle just because Johnny Greenwood's score is so intense and so overbearing, honestly, in One Battle. You know, you have these really jazzy moments. It's extremely percussive, like Greenwood likes to do, and it's well done. The score in itself is good, but from minute one, it is blaring at you over all of the scenes almost. Like, it's almost never not there. And it's something about Oppenheimer that I really disliked. Like, it never lets that music up. It never is not telling you how to feel about what's going on. It's something I really dinged Oppenheimer for. But even throughout, it very rarely is taking the time to slow down and to stop and gather its thoughts a little bit. I think it works in One Battle, but I do have to just acknowledge that it kind of reminded me of qualities that I really didn't like about Oppenheimer. The fact that it felt like this just like 3-hour trailer. That did bug me, and it slightly bugged me in One Battle. Not enough to, again, I think this movie is fantastic, but it is worth noting. I do think in terms of the music that there are some really interesting choices in One Battle. There's some not as interesting ones, and I've already seen like the one negative review out there that's actually for the outlet that I write for, Slant Magazine, complained about how obvious the Steely Dan Dirty Work music cue is, and also the cue that the film ends on, I do think is kind of obvious classic rock, dad rock moments. But there are some funnier ones, like the film is sort of associating Lockjaw and the White Supremacy Society with Christmas songs, which, you know, did hurt. It stung a little bit as a lover of Christmas music and of Christmas in general, I have to say, culturally, not really spiritually, but I did find that really funny. I also found the choices of the songs at the school dance for Chase Infinity's character really hilarious. Just chef's kiss. Honestly, fantastic stuff from Anderson there. I will say about the kind of fragmented short scenes that Anderson employs here, I found those really fascinating, and you just get this brief flash of a whole setup. Like there's this one of Lockjaw getting the Medal of Honor, and you see all of these officers kind of in a row, and they're presenting it to him in this room, and we just get it for like 2 seconds. And I think that's sort of like a Terrence Malick-esque way of doing things, you know? It's crazy. Like they definitely probably shot a whole scene, but he's just using like a brief moment of it. I honestly wonder how Sean Penn feels about that, since he legendarily hated that Malick did that in Tree of Life and kind of edited the movie into something totally different. I will end this impassioned, mostly rave, by just sharing my updated ranking of Paul Thomas Anderson's 10 feature films. Coming in at number 10, the worst, is Hard Eight, his debut, also titled Sydney. I believe that's the name he wants it to be called. Number 9 is Magnolia, his kind of swing and a miss of a everything is connected LA ensemble, a Robert Altman homage, a Shortcuts homage that I think doesn't quite work. Some of its mysticism is kind of interesting though, and it has some cool performances and stylistic touches, but I probably need to see it again. But that one's number 9. Number 8 is There Will Be Blood, his ambitious but I think kind of overheated adaptation of Upton Sinclair's Oil, starring Daniel Day-Lewis. Number 7 is Boogie Nights, his second film, which I think is a lot of fun. Now we're getting into films I genuinely like, and yeah, I think Boogie Nights is a great time. I think it's definitely a Goodfellas ripoff, as many people have mentioned, but it's a really fun period film, very horny and lewd in a way that I like a lot. Very funny John C. Reilly performance. So yeah, I have like, throw on Boogie Nights. It's a fun time. Number 6 is Inherent Vice, his 2014 first Thomas Pynchon adaptation before now One Battle After Another. I'm a big fan of Inherent Vice, and I think it really opens up on rewatch. I saw it at its world premiere at the New York Film Festival in 2014 on 35mm with Anderson and the cast there, and I liked it then. I had some issues though, but I watched it a few years ago again, and it really came together for me. Now the top 5. Number 5 is Punch Drunk Love. This is definitely one I need to watch again, despite the fact that it's the Anderson film I've seen the most. This was a huge movie for me in 2007, 2008, 2009. I was watching this thing all the time. I'm 11, 12, and 13 in those years, to be clear, and I just ate it up. I love this kind of quirky shit. And then I watched it again in college, and I wasn't as into it, or I think I was maybe rejecting a past version of myself, but I need to go back to it. I'm giving it the number 5 slot because it was such an instrumental movie for me. Number 4 is Licorice Pizza, his fantastic 2021 film. I was saying the other day to a friend, it's basically the greatest lark ever made. I mean, it's just like not a quote-unquote serious or consequential movie. I think it's kind of sneakily deep and really layered and rich and delightful. And speaking of needle drops, the Let Me Roll It Paul McCartney cue is just incredible. Now at number 3 is One Battle After Another. Yes, I mean, maybe this is recency bias, but I think this is an incredible American epic that truly lives up to some of those cliche things people say, like the movie we need right now. It just is. I mean, I think a lot of people will be resonating with this movie. Number 2 is Phantom Thread, is PTA's 2017 movie about Reynolds Woodcock, a fictional dressmaker and fashion designer. This is just a sumptuous movie. I mean, I think the word sumptuous was created for this film. It's a skew dark romance as well, and it's a fantastic movie if you haven't seen it. And maybe it'll even get higher on my rankings. I'm not sure. Number one is The Master, his 2012 opus. I don't know if he'll ever top this movie. I don't know if Joaquin Phoenix will ever top this movie. I don't know if Philip Seymour Hoffman, who I, rest in peace, but think maybe it was, whose talents are a bit oversold at this point. I think it was probably his best work. It's just one of the most twisted, gorgeously shot films of the century so far. Thanks so much for watching today. Everyone go out and see One Battle After Another, and this has been Red to Filth. Thanks, guys.